Welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast. Every successful online business entrepreneur has an incredible story to share about their journey to success. Listen and learn from top digital mavericks and online business insiders as they share their secrets so you can live the lifestyle you deserve. Your pilots for today's journey, Rob Fortney and Nick Nimmin. Welcome aboard, passengers. The digital journey begins now.
Hey, welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast, navigating your online business voyage. I'm Rob Fortney from the Amazon Gorillas and my partner, Nick Nimmin. Welcome to the podcast. How are you, Nick?
I am doing fantastic, Rob. I'm excited to get this show on the road today. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming in. And if you are returning, of course, it's nice to see you again. The Digital Journey Podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or your iTunes. And of course, as with every show, all links are in the show notes. Now, let's get into the show.
We've got some exciting guests today. We have invited one of our friends, Ian Bond, in, and Ian is a digital entrepreneur who happens to purchase businesses that are established as an investment in his life. And he's going to talk about his story and how he got to where he's at today and how he merged from the corporate world into the digital online business and why it was such a great investment and why the numbers made sense to him. So we're going to share that. So right now we're hanging out at the Empire Flippers retreat in Phuket, and we're in a house full of guys just like Ian. So Ian's graciously come down to share his story with us. So Ian, how are you? Welcome to the Digital Journey.
Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm delighted to be here and have a conversation with you. I think meeting like-minded people like this is not only it's not only self-reinforcing, but you learn so much. So I'm delighted to be here.
Absolutely. And real quick, Ian,
Sure.
Also some of the information that we're going to be talking about today, you're also going to be sharing this on your website, professionalwebsiteinvestors.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. I wanted to go ahead and get that in there.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. So we want to tell you today's show is brought to you by Empire Flippers, where they help people buy and sell quality websites and online businesses. And what they're to do is to take the friction out of buying and selling your online business. And Ian's probably going to give us some insight on how that process worked with Empire Flippers as well. And they are the #1 marketplace on the internet right now. If you want to buy a legitimate online business and invest your money safely and have the right things happen, it's with Empire Flippers. So we're glad to have them as a sponsor. So Ian, let's get down to brass tacks, which is, why did you decide, what was going on in your life when you decided,
Sure.
Okay, I'm jumping off of the corporate bandwagon, I'm out of here, and I can't do this? Or what was the failure? Something catalyst of change happened that
Sure.
you decided, I'm getting out of the real world.
So just by way of background, I've spent my entire career, over 36 years, in the wealth and asset management business, running private banks for a variety of the biggest financial institutions on the globe. And after the financial crisis, it became very obvious that the economics of running wealth management businesses in Wall Street had changed. I was coming up on 60, just turned 60 recently, and I realized that I have a very long longevity to fund, and that the corporate world is not very forgiving, and that incomes were certainly coming down. And I saw what I think is a huge demographic opportunity that I knew nothing about, and I wanted to figure out how to take advantage of it. I think by way of explanation, in my day job, I get to evaluate asset classes, strategies, and managers professionally for the banks that I work for. They come to see me, and so I have the ability to look across kind of the entire spectrum of all investable strategies and managers. And I think that investing in established online enterprises is the single most attractive investment opportunity that exists today.
Wait a second.
That's powerful.
That's a huge, powerful statement you just made there. And I happen to believe that as well. But all right, so that's a great answer, but why is that? Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think, first of all, I started my career in 1980, so I have some.
You've been around there doing it. You've seen a lot of bad stuff happen.
Yeah, I had some bad stuff and some good stuff.
Some really good stuff.
And I can tell you that what you have is kind of a confluence of very positive events. First of all, the demographics, as we all know, is that everything is going online. So virtually, commerce is moving online. Depending on what sources you look at, overall physical retail commerce is online is going to double between now and 2020 in terms of percentage, but it'll still only be 15% or so of the total. So that's a massive growth in opportunity that's taking place. So you've got that going on. You have people being empowered by new tools and new capabilities that make starting an online business, as cheap as $100 or less in a lot of cases.
Yeah. You can get started. In some cases, you can get started for free. Depending on the platforms that you use and things like that, and and how much hustle you have.
I wasn't going to go there, but you're absolutely right, and I've done that. Yeah. And then finally, we all know what the statistics are with regards to people starting new businesses and how high the failure rate is. So the opportunity as a seasoned professional to use your skill set to evaluate an established business and use your skill set then to take that business to the next level. You're buying businesses right now at anywhere from 20 to 40 times monthly earnings, which is ridiculously cheap in the scheme of things if you look at kind of the stock market or private equity valuations or
because you're talking about in a year getting half of your money back.
That's if you don't improve things.
Right. That and the likelihood that if you have business skills and you know how to run a business, and that's what I see is if you've got any skill at all, you've got marketing skills, systems skills, which I know you have. We talked about that a little bit. But if you have systems and you take a business like that and then ultimately crank it up and get it operating fluently, you'll increase that business. But even if you only stay still with where you're at, in 12 months, you are half of your entire money is back in your hand. And in 2 years, if you have an asset, you got all your money back and everything becomes positive cash flow at that point.
I was flabbergasted to learn that that's what the numbers look like, to be honest with you. But at the same time, 2.5 years ago, or 2.5, 3 years ago, when I started to get into this, it was not at all well organized.
Right.
And so I couldn't find the resources that I needed to find to figure out actually how to do that, which is the reason I created Professional Website Investors. And so, I think that the opportunity exists, and I think that what's going to happen is that as the word gets out that this can be done, all of those multiple valuations are going to go up.
I think they're going to continue.
So you have one of many ways to make money. Number one, the demographics are going to get better. Number two, the longer you own a website, the more that it's worth.
Yeah.
And number three, improve it by using your skill set, whatever it is that you can bring to the party. There's lots of ways to make money.
One of the things that I've found in the online sphere is that, because when I was in the restaurant business, so I was in the restaurant and nightclub business for 20 years. And literally when I stopped doing that and I thought I was going to go into the online business, I thought I was just screwed pup. I thought, I got to learn every single thing that applied. How am I going to do this? And the reality was, is I found out all of these strategies. Business is business in reality a lot of times. And that same skill that applied over here that was super, you thought, that was easy. I just started applying it. And literally when I became more successful online was when I just went back to what I already knew. Okay, well, listen, I want to operate in small niches. I want to operate in this kind of environment. I want to be the big fish in the small pond. Those things that I worked in the restaurant business when I opened places. I wanted to go on other people's scale. I wanted to find someone who had a restaurant and failed and go in and take over after him and use all his money and do it. You know what I mean? So and that's exactly kind of what we do if you're buying a business online right now. You're basically taking someone else builds this whole thing, does all the work for you, and you walk in and you get all your money back in 2 years.
I think originally when you look at it, it's very daunting, right? There are all these capabilities that you don't think you have,
right?
And that are not easy for you to identify how you're going to get good at it. But what you end up doing is figuring out what you are good at, and then figuring out how to outsource the other stuff, and put processes and procedures into place. The old McDonald's saying is that the systems run the business and people run the systems.
Right.
And quite frankly, that's all that it takes to be successful online.
I think you're right. I mean, I think it literally is setting up a system that works that you can continually follow through with. Yeah. So that's where guys, I think a lot of guys are thinking, well, I don't know this space. I don't know how
it's
to
intimidating.
operate. Completely intimidating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. And especially guys that are, if you're over the age 35, 40 years old, the internet wasn't something. Now I'm 47, so I'm at the point. I was like the first generation that probably had computers in high school. You wouldn't even have had computers in high school, so you had to start out.
College.
So that's what I'm saying. So that intimidation factor, is out there. But the reality is, it's a business like any other business. Okay, on Tuesdays, this has to be done. We have to make sure that this happens.
So I'll take you back to when I bought my first site, which happened to be through Empire Flippers. I had been looking forever at different sites. I was going to take a venture capital approach and take small bites,
right,
and hope that one of them worked out and that I didn't lose too much money on the other ones. I put a deposit down on a site, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, and I called Empire Flippers, and I said, give me the money back. And then I looked in the mirror one morning, and I said, you know what, this is $17,000.
Right.
And if I lose that money, it's less than a year's tuition at a good university. God damn it, buy the thing, okay?
Right.
And I bought it. The weekend my wife and I moved into a new apartment, I told her, here, honey, you've got to run this. I had never seen the back end of what this was a big commerce site. I'd never seen the back end of what it looked like. It took us a very short period of time to migrate the site from the owner, who was great. And a month later, then we bought our second site from Empire Flippers, which has just taken off, and we've made quite a lot of money on that site.
Nice. So basically, you dove in.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what? I'm purchasing this now, and then we're going to figure out how to actually run it.
That was the only way that I could figure out how to get past the take no action or take action decision.
Sure.
To be honest with you, and I shamed myself into doing it.
Yeah, it's a great approach, though.
That's the approach that works.
I was scared to death.
Oh, I'm sure.
Look, $17,000 didn't scare me to death because I had taken this venture capital approach, saying, look, I can take several shots at this, okay?
Right.
And by the way, the site was a 2008 site, so it wasn't going to go away. There was a lot of embedded SEO. But did I know what I was doing? Absolutely not. I had no idea.
Nice. So you don't have to know exactly what you're doing.
Absolutely not.
But you're a business guy.
Yeah.
You know how to do business. It's not gonna. You're gonna be able to get in there, and you're gonna find things that you identify with, and those things that you don't, you're gonna do what you did in your other business. You're gonna outsource. You're gonna find somebody to answer the questions for you.
Well, we made a lot of mistakes early on, and
so let's start there.
Yes.
So what was the dumbest thing you did?
Boy, yeah.
Or we'll just say the biggest mistake.
I was just going to say, where do we start with the dumbest things? Dumbest things we did. I think it was probably trying to learn everything from the get-go. Now, I think there's a huge component that if you're going, I think you have to step back. The way to be successful is to figure out what you want your life to look like, and to figure out, how you are going to monetize your efforts so that you're not doing something you dislike. I'm in the corporate world. I disdain meetings. I don't want to do any meetings if I don't have to. I'm great at strategy, overall strategy, and I've run sales organizations forever. So those are the things that I can really leverage off of. For me, it was to dive into the specifics around doing product uploading. It was the specifics around doing paid traffic. Things where I spend an enormous amount of time, thinking about it and learning it, when in fact I could easily hire it out and work on the stuff where I could add much more value. So I spent time adding value, or trying to add value in places I couldn't.
So essentially what you're saying is you wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah.
Where if you would have just said, okay, you know what, this isn't my area of expertise, this
Exactly.
isn't what I know, so I'm going to outsource this, and then I'm going to keep focusing on the parts that I do know, the parts that I do understand, instead of trying to...
Or if I would have had the Rolodex I have now, I would have just called somebody and said, hey, do this.
Sure. Hey, I need a hand.
Yeah,
sure,
exactly.
Sure.
Or how do I do it?
I think that's probably one of the biggest things that if you're gonna do this, is it's developing that toolkit.
That's right.
But that's where working with a company like Empire Flippers,
Yes.
or working in a community, and the great thing about about the whole digital space is there's a huge community of people. I mean,
Yes.
I live in Chiang Mai,
Yep.
and I go out to lunch
One of my favorite
10
cities.
times a week if I wanted to with
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that do exactly what I do every day. You're in Phuket. We're hanging out in a house in the most beautiful location in the world right now, and there's
Yeah.
15 guys who do just what we do.
And by the way, this is my second retreat. I came to the first one last year, and the reason I came, notwithstanding the great content that we'll get, is to spend more time with guys like you, because this is what it's all about, right? The reason that I built Professional Website Investors is to provide people with an opportunity to get access to that Rolodex. I can pick up the phone and call people to help answer questions that people might have on what problems they face. Now, my generation's a little older. It's not as tech savvy as your generation, but that would have been invaluable to me back when my digital journey was starting, because I was lost, to be honest with you.
Nice.
So let's go down. Let's maybe just delve into maybe the numbers a little bit. Let's talk about real numbers and investing kind of numbers. Let's talk about so let's assume, because I talk with people and they're thinking about the money that they're going to spend, and I think you almost up front you should be looking at it, if you've got a lot of money and you're investing, but you should look at it as a venture capitalist kind of thought process when you're getting into it. But because the returns are that high that you can screw this thing up a couple of times, even if you do, and you still, if 1 out of 3 make it,
And I have.
you have to be extremely lucky.
So let me give you some background, because I was at Goldman in the 80s when kind of the LBO craze started, okay? And when we were talking to Goldman clients back in the 80s, when we would launch a fund and we would say, look, in the last fund there were 10 investments. In that fund, 1 to 2 of the investments would drive all of the returns. 6 or 7 of the investments maybe make a little bit of money and maybe lose a little bit of money. The other couple lost it all. All right? Now that was more LBO investing. In the venture capital world, it's probably even more skewed. Now, my feeling was that if I were going to invest $25,000, which included purchase price plus some additional investments which I knew I would make, that my upside, if I lost $25,000, it wasn't going to affect my life, but I could probably 10 or 20x that if I picked a niche which was big enough for me to be able to make an impact. And if I was wrong, I'd probably just, as you point out, pay myself back in a year or a year and a half or something like that. And that's not such a bad outcome. Now, my entire reason for being was to create for my family income, because my corporate job's going to end. And, like a lot of professionals out there, the world is changing for career professionals, whether they're corporate or not corporate, and we're all going to live to be 80 or 85 or 90 years old, and you've got to fund that somehow.
Yeah.
So
the traditional way of doing things is not how you do it now.
No.
It doesn't work anymore.
Well, there's no tradition anymore.
It's true. Yeah.
Look, I turned 60, and I can only tell you that ageism, whether you're inside the United States, which I'm not, or whether you're outside the United States, which I am, ageism exists, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And look, incomes are just coming down for lots of reasons. One of the reasons we're all taking advantage of, which is the global talent pool out there.
Yeah.
We outsource to the Philippines, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Mexico right now, and we do a little bit of work in the United States.
Nice.
So yeah.
How great is it not to have employees?
It's wonderful not to have employees. I will say this, my wife is an operations guru, and so one of the things that we do exceptionally well, I think, are standard operating procedures. So if an outsourced employee starts with us, they actually don't start on the job until they spend a week in our SOPs.
Nice.
And so our kind of, I think, value add is creating, real strict processes and procedures so that we're dealing with both customers and suppliers in the most professional manner possible. So we do that, and we think that kind of raises the bar with regards to how we are in the marketplace.
Absolutely, and creating that process. It's a business just like any other business. It's not something, like, hey, I'm going to buy this website and then fly by the seat of my pants on everything else. You're structuring it and putting those processes in place, even for the people, the outsourcers that you bring on board
Right.
to actually, fit into what it is you're doing. Just like if you had a brick and mortar business where you'd bring somebody in and run them through like a training process.
So just to put it in perspective, the second website which we bought, which would have been November of 2015, paid $25,000 for. That website now generates at least $25,000 a month in net income on a monthly basis and does well into six figures on a monthly basis in revenues.
Nice.
So let's put that number out there again, because say that back slowly, because like that, and I always laugh when I say this, but like that's like a drug deal. Like, I mean, the number you just threw out, like that's not happening in any other space, unless you're buying Bitcoin right now. But
I didn't tell you about some of the ones we've lost money on, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, no, we bought a site. The second site we bought, we also bought from Empire Flippers. It was making about $1,250 when you kind of looked at all of the numbers, and that site's now making 20x that per month.
Nice. Good investment.
It's been a good investment, but I would say one of the things that, the prior owner was a digital nomad who lived in Bangkok, and for him to sell a site for $25,000 allowed him to live in Bangkok for another couple of years. Okay?
Right.
He didn't have the money to invest in it like we did. He didn't have the know-how to take it to this level. We're applying corporate finance techniques to this.
Right.
We've taken this to a whole nother level in terms
But
of.
now you're talking about, but now, like, so I'm running that number, and I'm thinking, so now you're doing that number, so now you're talking about something that you paid 25 for that sells for 600 today.
Hopefully more.
Well, I'm just saying, quickly doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
So now, it's 2017.
Yes.
So in addition to the 25 tax you're making right now, that we're talking about, in reality, if you called up Empire Flippers tomorrow, we're talking about, $500,000 to close to $1 million, because you now have more established more time. So instead of a year, now it's 2 years, 3 years. I mean, you might get 30, 40 times earnings on something like that.
I think that's a fair evaluation, yes.
Okay, so
So we'll just go ahead and say wow. We'll leave it at that.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, listen, I'm telling you, the first time I know that Empire Flippers, is a sponsor of the show, but I was the hugest fan. The first time I heard about Empire Flippers was about 8 months ago, and I stayed up for 3 days. My mind was so crazy trying to put this process that this was actually happening, that there was a marketplace where people were willing to buy and sell these businesses.
But if you're like me, it's not well organized, right? I mean, you have to think of the number of monetization methods that are out there. How do you determine, should you buy a SaaS business or an apps business or a content business or an affiliate business or a physical goods business? Is that physical goods e-commerce or is it FBA? How do you put all that together? So I'm sure, like me, you listen to a lot of podcasts to figure out.
See, but I came from a different space. I came from, because I was in the restaurant and nightclub business, I had gotten out of that, had lost everything, so I actually had to start over. So 25 years worth of my life went and disappeared, and I'm started at zero. Literally, I got no money. Now, I don't have enough money to go buy a business. I got to start a business. So I started in the FBA space and built up from, how do I find a product? How do I sell a product? So then what I was doing is I got really great at finding a product, launching the product, and then I was flipping them myself. So meaning I would go in, I didn't know there was Empire Flippers, I'd get a product, I'd launch it, 30, 60 days later, I then would slip it to somebody else who didn't want to go through that process.
That's right.
Well, I'd have no money in it. I'd turn it, I'd make 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 times what I got in it already. And I'm doing that in 30 days, sometimes 60 days. Well, then somebody comes and says, my buddies, I'm having a lunch in Chiang Mai one day. He goes, I just sold my FBA business. Well, what did you get? $289,000. What? What?
Reality check.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, in all honesty, one of the I guess advantages maybe that I have is that because I see so many deals from other investors, right, in other spaces, private equity, hedge funds, traditional managers, I read a lot of prospectuses, so I get all of the deals from all of the competitors of Empire Flippers, and I read all of the deals. Well, you can pick up a lot of information on what other people are doing correctly just by reading, and I read voraciously all of these deals. And in the deal that I just mentioned, I picked up a very, very important piece of information, which if I hadn't been, if I wasn't kind of an addict for this kind of thing, I probably would never have been able to pick up on.
But one of the things I think is that if you're a risk averse person, this is not. I mean, if you don't understand that there are risks, now I was in a place where if you're starting from ground zero, because I mean we're talking to people who are where I was, which was I'm 43 years old at the point. I've got to now figure out what I'm going to do and start over again. It's a great opportunity because my buddy started his deal at $2,500. A year later, he made $2,000, made $25, sold it for $60, took $2,500, turned it into $80,000 in a year, selling a little golf gift box on Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. But you can do that. Like there's
that's
not,
how things are.
That's
these
how
days.
things are in this space right now. And this is not like, we're not talking about you have to build a rocket ship. We're talking about going out and doing some research, finding a product. Don't be trying to get into these huge competitive environments, or finding an affiliate site where traffic's being done and then being able to apply it. But so if I'm looking at this and let's say I've got $100,000.
One hand, you could say that there's a lack of risk taking, but on the other hand, your downside's so limited. Are you really taking a lot of risk, right?
Kind of taking a risk, not doing something.
So
like that.
I tell people in the Amazon FBA space. I mean, let's assume even if you're going to put $10,000. First of all, where can you start a business for $10,000? It doesn't. Nowhere. Where can you take a thing with $10,000 and turn it into $200,000 in 2 years? Let alone.
Well, where can you buy a 2-year-old established business that's earning $1,250 and see if you can scale it up from that for $25,000, which is what I did.
Right.
So the 55-year-old guy is probably got more money than time.
Right. And we talk about that because I think that's important. We talked about that a little bit ago, and we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
So there's two guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy that's got a lot of time.
Yes.
And no money.
That's right.
Or he's got a lot of money and little time.
Right. So where I think you and I would differ, Rob, is that I have a day job and it's 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and I have no time and more money. And so my venture capital approach was to sit back and say, look, if I take your theoretical $100,000 and I make 4 investments, is there a way for me to not only not lose all of the money, but also potentially, build a fair amount of income for me and my family going forward, as well as learn a whole lot along the way and take it to the next level. And so, I think that opportunity is out there today in spades. Will it exist 3 to 5 years from now? The
whole world could change by then.
Yeah, no, you guys tell me if you think that it's going to be the case. But I can only tell you that as an asset class becomes better recognized, the information's better, there's more price discovery, it becomes more expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with the way things are going also, I mean, like everything is going online. Like everything. I mean, almost everything's online already. But, it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's just more and more and more opportunity as the days go on.
People are all the time going, well, am I too late to the party?
Right. Oh,
like,
Lord.
Like we're not even in the pre-party of the party yet.
Yeah.
Like this is like, we're just getting here. I mean, this thing, because I knew when I heard, I knew that real money would show up eventually. And I could see that it was out there because I could see the money that people were making. But I didn't see the end where, where people were actually. Somebody has to organize the fact. This is the process of buying a business. Here's how you hand over the keys. Well, how do I transfer ownership? I mean, all of those things have to transpire. And I imagine even 2 years ago, I mean, it was even weird then. And it only gets better now as we move forward.
Yeah.
But I mean, up front, I mean, there's just basic questions. Well, like, how do I own this site? Like, what do you mean? What am I actually buying? You know what I mean? Like, I'm buying this traffic. I'm buying this URL,
I can remember being suspicious about sending deposits. I remember being, totally baffled about understanding on, how the domain transfers work. Would the suppliers actually accept us? As I said, we had never seen the back end of how a BigCommerce or a Shopify site worked. Right. We didn't know how it actually would work when someone entered an order. We needed to get approved by a payment processor. We didn't know how that worked before. So all of that stuff was just all unknown.
Well, who walked you through that process? So, okay, you've bought this business for $25,000. Okay, what happened? The morning you wake up and you got the keys. Now what happens?
Well, I think it was a confluence of things. First of all, my wife, worked as kind of the COO of a private equity group inside an investment bank. So she's very operationally oriented. So she was able to fairly quickly organize all of these kind of issues, and then dive into that. And I would go to work in the morning and come back, and I would hear kind of what transpired during the day. We got great help during the migration from the seller. So that's a big deal, I think, when you're buying a website. I think we were smart in that we didn't bite off more than we could chew. So, for example, I think for us to try to figure out if to build an Amazon FBA business, create a product, source it in China, deliver it to the U.S., I don't think we could have done any of that chain of events.
Right.
For us to go through a drop shipping model where kind of the suppliers are in place. The business has been up and operating at that point for 7 or 8 years. That was kind of the right thing for us to do. We learned a lot since then. We can take more risks now. We've learned on what we're good. Our current staff right now is 5 customer service and support, and another 6 or 7 developers, because we've got some development activities in terms of our expansion, supporting multiple sites now. So we have.
So are you looking at now? I mean, are you now looking at creation?
Yeah, we're very rapidly expanding into other product lines.
Because once you know the space and once you know how to do it,
yes.
So somebody's basically giving you an operating machine. You're inside of the machine. You're fine-tuning the machine. Eventually, you know how to build the machine yourself.
Yeah, Rob. We think that we've found a model that works, and I'm one of those guys who puts all the chips in the middle of the table when he figures that out. And so, we have a system. We're geographically located in the United Arab Emirates in Abu Dhabi. And so we have easy access to developers in Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. We have trained them to do things our way. We outsource everything through Upwork for those developers. We have customer service people that we work with out of the Philippines. As I mentioned, they go through all our SOPs that my wife has created. My wife owns the business, runs the business.
Shout out to the wife.
Yep. She is the one that will, is really responsible for all this. I have I kind of created the strategy back in the day because I saw the, kind of the corporate earnings stream, coming down. But my wife has really been the person that is responsible for the success. I'd like to think that we share some of this strategy with the operations, but the reality is she's making the business go every day.
She's doing the day-to-day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's assume I don't have a wife and I've got my $100,000. I buy 4 sites, or I buy.
And I'll go ahead and say that you don't have a wife, actually. So we are we're not only assuming
available.
Yeah, this is legit.
Available, yes.
He does not have a wife. Okay, so we have that out of the way.
Right, yes. So I've purchased my site. How much time? So let's talk about time and amount of time that really would have to be spent. And let's assume you've got one, and maybe your deal is okay. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time trying to improve this. I just want to maintain the income. What kind of time frame do you think a guy's going to have to spend? Because some guys may look, I appreciate what you're doing, but I don't need to buy a job.
Yeah. So let's get real and talk about what that process is like.
Yeah,
because
please.
I will tell you that for the first year and change, we felt stupid. You read about everybody else's success stories, how they're crushing it, and they're making, thousands of dollars a month, and you can't figure it out, okay? It doesn't matter. You're making the mistakes like I made where you're trying to learn AdWords, you're trying to upload product, and you're just not getting the results, okay? And it's demoralizing. And in the corporate world that I come from, when you're not succeeding, it's known as failing. Well, failing is not something that feels good on a daily basis. And we would come home and look at each other and say, what are we missing here, okay? And I can only tell you that every time when we had a setback, I would look at her and say, look, it's not going to sink the business. It's not going to sink us as a family. We're going to persevere. We're going to sort this out. We just learned something. Write that down. And
don't do it again.
And after about 15 months, it all clicked, and it took off here in 2017. And now our revenues have 2 commas, and things are going great. But I will tell you that there is a period of time of self-introspection where it won't be going great, and you have to come to grips with the fact that you've got a lot to learn. I've spent 36 years doing what I do for a living, and I think I'm pretty good at it. But I learn something every day what I do too.
What would have happened if you would have said, okay, I'm done with the corporate job?
Yeah.
And you would have got up every day instead of doing your other job, and you would have focused on that business. Do you think it would have come quicker?
It's something I think about every day, and I have to tell you, I think I have a friend, Pete Sisko, who I'll give a shout out to, who runs a program called Safely Leave the Rat Race, and he proposes approaching your new occupation in a fashion such that you kind of feel like you're in control before you actually make the jump. And I have to tell you, I think from our standpoint, I expanded last year before things were going great, and I got a little bit too far out over my skis. And the results weren't there, and, some of the reserves were depleted, and we weren't seeing, kind of returns that we thought we were going to see. So I think that there is, at least from my standpoint, a benefit of doing it, a little bit more deliberately. I have a family and I have 3 kids, and I'm 60 years old, and for me that worked. If I was younger, if I was your guys' age, I'd feel differently. I do have a very robust conversation with one of my best friends, and he tells me, he says, based on what you're doing, imagine if you didn't work 8 hours a day and you could apply all of your energies to this, how fast you could go.
Right.
And so I have that one every day too.
Yeah,
so.
I bet that's a very
Yeah, I don't have
heavy
that.
internal battle.
Yeah, it really is.
Imagine it.
It is. It is now that we're having the kind of success we're having. A year ago, it didn't feel
Right,
like
you were
that.
like, I'm glad I got this job. Honey, you
Exactly.
keep doing that. I'll keep going to the other job until you get this done.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So now you said before that you think that you've figured it out. You think that you've got the system together. Are you in the process right now of replicating? Of scaling?
Yes.
Of scaling?
Yeah, we're scaling the business in a very rapid fashion, which is why we have all the developers that we have that are working for us. And, by kind of all the metrics that we use, we're expanding at a very rapid rate.
Great.
And the way that I look at it is I look at the number of products that we're offering in the channels that we're offering them, and I look every day to find out more products approved and what the developers are doing. Obviously, I watch the sales numbers, but the sales numbers are kind of a lagging indicator because it's really the products that we're putting into the pipeline that are new. So. I would think that in this year we'll more than double the number of products that we're selling from kind of the end of last year. Nice. And that will mean that we have a fairly good-looking future 12, 24 months.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, because your
makes sense.
multiplier's 30 and 40 times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does presume that the products that we're putting on are as productive as the ones that we have.
Yeah,
on.
but how many of them have to be successful? I mean, like when it happens so big that it's just.
Well, the other thing is, Rob, you just don't know.
Right.
You just don't know. Okay, so we think that we're doing the right things, and
some of them you're doing the wrong, for sure.
Yes, for sure. And I see a lot of deal flow. I'm the deal flow guy.
Right.
I'm very, very fortunate, and I have some good relationships with proprietary deal flow. But I look at all the public deal flow also, and you do the best you can.
So we have this part of the show where we talk about what's in your digital toolbox. So the digital toolbox to me is what kind of apps, what kind of software tools might you be using in your business on a daily business to make you more effective? What kind of media are you consuming? Like what kind of podcast? What podcast are you listening to right now?
Or anything? What are you reading?
Right,
What are you?
So
You know,
what's
like
in your
what's your
toolbox
school
right now that's keeping you moving forward?
Okay, so I'll start with the kind of the intellectual stuff first, because I think the commitment that you have to make is you have to shut out everything that's extraneous and focus on with the limited time you have on getting smarter in the limited time that you have. So I read everything that's available about different types of entrepreneurship, particularly around e-commerce. In the podcast world, that has migrated over time. I obviously listen to the Web Equity Show with Justin and Ace, and the Empire Flipper Show with Joe and Justin. I still listen to the Tropical MBA guys. They've gone a little bit different direction. Steve Chu, my wife quit her job, has a great podcast. I am not as involved in Amazon FBA, but I do listen to a lot of Amazon FBA stuff because I think that I need to understand that better. In books, I'm an avid consumer of, and by the way, I'm always listening to a podcast. I'm a walker, and so I walk an hour and a half a day on weekends, less during the week, and I'm always listening to a podcast. I spend a lot of time in cars on my way to meetings in other cities, and so I'm also always listening to an audiobook. So, probably the most recent audiobook I listened to was MJ DeMarco's new book. He's the guy that wrote Millionaire Fastlane. He's got a new book out, which name I've forgotten. And I also mentioned that probably the most influential book that I've listened to in the last month is Thomas Friedman's new book. He's the guy that wrote The Earth is Flat. And his new book is called Thank You for Being Late. And if you want to understand what's going on today, he has gone back and looked at all of the things that happened in 2007 and 2008 that are impacting what's going on in the world today. And I can't tell you how impactful it is. Matter of fact, I'll challenge you to read the free part on Amazon and not buy the book. Okay, I think
really
it's that powerful. Yeah, it's that powerful. So that kind of covers books and podcasts to a limited extent.
Software tools, apps.
Software tools. We're such a process-driven shop that we use Sweet Process. My wife probably has 50 different processes documented. They're being updated regularly. They're around different protocols in dealing with customers, with suppliers, we use email templates. We use templates for everything. We don't let a VA freelance anything. We have financial spreadsheet templates that every one of our people are accustomed to using. So I would say Sweet Process and kind of Excel. We're a Shopify and BigCommerce back-end shop, and so we utilize them and all they do. I outsource all of our PPC business. We use Upwork and onlinejobs.ph for our hiring needs, and we've had tremendous amount of luck there. My wife has some unique abilities in terms of sourcing good VAs and training those VAs, and so that's kind of a proprietary capability that we have. Other apps, I don't think I can add as much probably to the conversation as other people might have. I use Google Analytics and kind of all the normal analytical stuff that everybody else uses.
How much time are you spending? Do you do any YouTube? Because we talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and the number one thing that we hear back, what's your number one source? Well, if I got a question, I just go to YouTube and get the answer.
Yeah. So right now we're in the process of putting together 100 product videos.
Right.
I believe that video will be the next great SEO tool, and so 75 seconds is the 75 seconds is the optimal time. And we have an award-winning filmmaker that we work with who's doing right now our first 100 product videos. Nice. And we think that that's going to put us, page one, number 4, 5, or 6, hopefully, in SEO rankings. And for people that are consuming stuff on their phones, you basically want to hear and see on a video what they would read normally on the web. Sure. We have one site that over 60% of the sales come from phones. It's a small baby site. It was the first one that we bought. It's one I mentioned earlier. That's women 25 to 34, and they're buying on their over 60% are buying on their phones. So video is a big deal for us.
Yeah. Amazon's up almost over 50% now.
YouTube is also over 50%. Yeah, YouTube I think is somewhere around 50.
So, I mean, it's all going to be our phone. I mean,
Yeah.
our phone is everything.
Matter of time.
I would tell you this. The other place that I think that doesn't get the due that it should get that's been huge for us is a platform called House. If you are familiar with Mike Jackness, he spoke at from Ecom Crew, another podcast I listened to. He spoke at Steve Chu's Seller Summit, and when asked about whether or not he's used Jet or Walmart as platforms, he said that there are only two platforms that consistently drive traffic, Amazon and House. And we believe House is 10 years behind Amazon. Just got funding from Zuckerberg's money management firm. They're called Iconic. It's at a $4 billion valuation now, and it's an animal. House does something very, very unique. It provides decorators, designers, product suppliers, and then consumers a place to go and look at high-end things for their home in kind of a Pinterest format.
Oh, nice.
And, if you think about Amazon, they're really good at delivering. They're a logistics company, right? They deliver stuff in shoeboxes as well, right? Now they're going to do carrots. Carrots are going to come in shoeboxes, I guess. If you think about adding sophistication to stuff on Amazon, well, that's been left to the Amazon affiliate guys, right? Amazon affiliate sites, best electric blanket, best toaster, best whatever. You go there, you buy it, Well, House actually captures that value chain. I think it'll be very interesting now with food at Amazon because they can add value there. And they're also moved into automotive, which is an area that does need, kind of more explanation. But House has captured that in the household space. We're huge players on House and big believers in House, and very happy that they got Zuckerberg's financing and aren't going to be bought by Amazon.
Sure. So if somebody wants to find out more about you and the project that you're working on, where can they go to find out more about you?
I would say our website is professionalwebsiteinvestors.com. That would probably be the best place to get a hold of us. That is a site that's dedicated to people that are kind of at my point in the journey going back a few years and trying to figure out how to make sense of all of this, where they should participate, how they can learn the basics, how they could get access to a Rolodex of people that could help them be part of an online community where they can add or they can have exchanges with other people that are at the same point in the journey. I think that's the best place.
Okay.
One last question I always like to ask. So there's a guy out there right now. He's turning 60 next month. He's not happy, or he's happy, but he wants something different. And he's debating every day like you were. What do I do? What do I do? What is the one thing you'd tell that guy to get him to do the thing that he needs to do, which is to take that step or take that trip? What do you tell that guy? Whisper in his ear right now. Oh, okay, how about this? Whisper in your own ear from the guy right now to tell that guy that was there, that was scared to death to do what he did. What would you tell that guy?
I think, and I've thought a lot about this. I think it comes down to mindset. And I'm a big believer that you're going to have to make some very difficult decisions on the people you hang around with, the people that influence you, and you're going to have to make a commitment. And if you're not willing to make sacrifices, you're not going to get there. So I think you've got to focus first and foremost on your mindset and block out the negativity. There are people that are out there that are crushing it. They are doing it. I'm lucky that I'm involved in a bunch of Facebook groups of people that are constantly out there trying. You're going to make mistakes. That's just par for the course. But you ultimately, if you persevere, you'll succeed. So I think it's all about mindset and losing some of the negativity around you.
And you've done a lot of things that hurt way worse than the failures that you've been through. That's what I always tell people. You failed way more than you could ever fail, even if you just did this. I watch guys holding onto the trigger for spending $10,000. I'm like, how many times have you risked $10,000 in your life? $10,000 means nothing, and you're scared to death just to do anything. Just do it.
So if you're 60 years old and you're a career professional or a corporate guy like me, and you're looking at a declining income and financing your longevity, which is going to be quite long. Right. I actually have a couple of young kids and one in college. You need to do something. So the question isn't, do you have a plan? Is what is your plan? Okay.
Or you better get a plan.
Yeah, you better figure it out.
That's
Right.
fabulous.
So that's it.
That's it. That's the answer right there.
All right, Ian, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate
Thanks, Nick.
having you on and for you taking the time to
Thanks,
hop
Rob.
on here and share your knowledge with us. Thank you. You've been listening to the Digital Journey podcast, helping you navigate your way through the online business voyage. If you are interested in searching for an online business or selling your business, make sure that you check out Empire Flippers at empireflippers.com. And if you are listening to this on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever it is, go ahead and remember to rate the show. We appreciate 5 stars. That would be awesome of
Lots
you.
of 5 stars.
And make sure that you also leave any comments or questions that you have about anything that we discussed today.
If you want to reach me, you can reach me at Facebook at robfortneyjr.com. I answer all emails, questions, send you in a direction, give you an answer if I can. If you want to reach Nick, you can catch him on his YouTube channel at Nick Nimmin.
YouTube.com/Nick Nimmin.
There you go.
NICKNIMMIN.
And we love to talk to you guys. So anything you have any question, need some inspiration, you need just a minute, someone to help push you over the edge, we'd be more than happy to help you.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
You're listening to the Digital Journey podcast. The Digital Journey is brought to you by Empire Flippers, the largest marketplace for selling and purchasing online businesses. EmpireFlippers.com.